What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of album number 6, Pray for the Wicked by Panic at the Disco. Panic at the Disco have been active since the mid-2000s, and they've had a very successful career up to this point. And yes, now it is just Brendon Urie, the vocalist and the multi-instrumentalist, the sole remaining member. They even lost Dallin Weeks, a long-loved touring member of the band. He's moved on to I don't know how, but they found me, and that happened after the cycle for Death of a Bachelor. Now, DOAB was definitely not an album that I was in love with. You might remember my 3 out of 5 review that I caught a lot of flack for, but understandably, I guess, strong fan base, lots of opinions flying around, but I truly stand by my rating of that. And it wasn't really a super negative review, I don't feel like. There were great songs on that album, everything from House of Memories to something like the single Hallelujah, which sure, could get stale with repeated listens, but it's fun to come back to. Even a song like LA Devotee grew on me, and I think that there were plenty of merits to Death of a Bachelor, despite it being a little bit all over the place. Now on Pray for the Wicked, he's opted for more of a perhaps Broadway-inspired sound, maybe after his time on Kinky Boots on Broadway, and I think that that really reflects in the way that the production is handled, the amount of horns and the arrangements that are done, just the big band feel that comes in on some of these tracks, and even some of the Frank Sinatra-isms, I suppose. He's frequently been compared to Sinatra in terms of like vocals and just his style of doing things, maybe perhaps being a little bit old-fashioned in some of his trends, but overall, I would say that this new record is more cohesive, for better or for worse. Now, on the last record, I mentioned that there were memorable moments that I keep coming back to, but with Pray for the Wicked, I can't help but feel let down all around, because even the strongest tracks on Death of a Bachelor, there's nothing here that rivals that. And up to this point, Death of a Bachelor, I feel like, was their worst record, but here, Pray for the Wicked is easily taking the cake. The problems stack up to the clouds with this record, as it features very weak lyrics, very stale and predictable formulaic appearances both lyrically and sometimes also the production feeling cheap to me as well, throwing in occasional buzzwords to keep people interested, i.e. throwing shade. Other terms like that are used here just to keep your attention, I feel like, and I just don't feel like that is really the best form of entertainment that Panic and even Brendon are capable of. I think that vocally, Brendon sounds fine on this album in general, but fine I don't think is exactly what we've come to expect from Brendon Urie. He's somebody who can go out there and sing his ass off. That's something that I've always given him credit for. He's done it on really every record up to this point, and he does have moments that shine through here, but honestly, I feel like they've kind of opted for something a little bit more commercial friendly, and he's been watered down as a result. To describe the sound of the backing music and just the instrumentation on this record, I have to say that there is a big overabundance of horns being used, trying to keep it sounding like this kind of jazz fusion that mixes in some modern pop production elements and clean choruses. It just all feels a little bit too cleaned up, and the way that the songs are written don't exactly often fit the tone of the musicality, and as a result, I think listeners are going to be left stranded in this weird place in the outfield saying, well, I want to like this because I like Panic at the Disco. Maybe I'll get into it more over time, but I just don't feel like these songs have any kind of timeless quality to them whatsoever. Not that everything has to have a timeless appeal, but it just feels a bit rushed to me. Maybe like it was like King of the Clouds, which barely made it onto this record because apparently Brendon had an hour to meet a deadline and he rushed the production of that song, getting everything done last second. I don't feel like it maybe particularly hurt that song being one of the better tracks here, but overall, I do get a sense of rush to the album, and I'm not sure why that is, considering Panic at the Disco are huge. They should be able to take their time with whatever exactly he or they, the people working on the record, are doing. An unfortunate stumbling point that I've discovered is that Panic at the Disco are making more and more anthem-styled songs, ones that try to appeal and I suppose uplift uplift in some sense or maybe just serve as like a party song. And there's an overabundance of those on this album. Everything from Say Amen Saturday Night, which is obviously one of the better tracks here. I already touched on that in my track review. But also you have other songs such as Fuck a Silver Lining and also Dancing's Not a Crime and even High Hopes. And all of these tracks are really trying to push and sell that momentum and that urgency, and I just don't really feel like they do. But even though there are those anthems, there's also some very catchy moments here, such as High Hopes and Fuck a Silver Lining and even Saturday Night. But some of those, I feel like the joy and maybe the enthusiasm that you felt the first couple of times that you listen, it wears thin as you come back to them and you think, well, this could have been done a lot better. But despite that, there are still other catchy songs and moments that remain, even if it's not the full song. There are some great ones like the Overpass that I truly think I will come back to. The biggest looming problem that overshadows so much of this very short album, only about 34 minutes, is the fact that so many of these songs are trying way too hard in really every sense. Like I already talked about, trying to force the urgency, but also the way that the lyrics are juxtaposed with the musicality. It seems like it's trying to sell me on something, but I'm not exactly sure what that is. I feel like I'm being pitched to, and I'm a network executive, and that's not exactly fun. Even if the music seems like it's trying to be fun, I don't always get that excitement or that jubilance from it, and that's really a shame, especially on an album that's marketing itself on being kind of upbeat for the most part, kind of fun, having some loose flowing songs. And the first one I will look at is something that I'm on the fence with in a very big way. I do like aspects of this song, King of the Clouds, but there are problems with it. Now it starts off with this kind of breathy intro and a little bit of guitar that reminds me of almost a Queen styling, and sure, that sounds like a compliment. In fact, it is one in its starting stage, but after it really gets going and the race is on, I just don't feel like it capitalizes on what it could have possibly done. In fact, this song is really written from the point of view of Brendon Urie when he was high, he's smoking weed, and he's writing a song, or else he's not actually. His friends are writing down what he's saying, and then he tries to tie together everything into the song and make it the lyrics for King of the Clouds. And I just don't really feel like it's all that special. It really tries to sell itself as like maybe an exploration of the universe. And then it gets to that hook about, getting lifted, and I just don't really feel like that's very good. I mean, the more you hear it, the cheesier it gets, and I get that Brendon has even said himself that he's a cheesy guy, but for repeated listens of a song, this just isn't making the cut. It does have merits in its verses, and overall it's fine. The guitars on it are kind of nice, but I don't feel like it's all that great for me to keep coming back to and for other listeners to keep coming back to in the future. Things really start to get rough on Roaring Twenties and Old Fashioned, the latter of those especially, boasting this weird trap-inspired skittering beat and just a rhythm that keeps recurring throughout the song, and then adding in an acoustic guitar that sounds like it could have been played by Ed Sheeran, but also vocally it seems a little bit inspired by that, and the way that it's kind of toned down and its pacing, feeling a little bit too overtly modern, trying to fit into a modern context and setting. And I don't know that this will be released as a single in the future. It just seems like overall the album is playing it safe by keeping a decent amount of songs that appeal to the average listener in 2018. Roaring Twenties sounds like it should be a hell of a ride, right? Just look at the title and think back to that time that you might have learned back in your history class about the Roaring Twenties, and also, oh no, reefer madness, and weed was really cracked down on. I mean, marijuana, and even coming up into the Prohibition era, there was a lot of stigma around alcohol and marijuana use and everything like that. So I'm thinking, I see the title Roaring Twenties, okay, maybe he's going to take some inspiration there, but really, it quickly squanders what it started in the first verse of this song. It sounds like it had some promise, it was drawing me in with a little bit of a darker vibe, but it's all just pretty much thrown into the garbage once I hear the hook of this track. I mean, it's really, really bad. I mean, roll me like a joint 'cause I want to go home? What were we thinking there? That sounds so bad, and especially as the song goes on, it turns into roll me a joint 'cause I want to go home. And I don't know if he's implying that he's only at home when he's able to get stoned and high at home or in the studio or whatever, or if it's just a really cheap, buzzy lyric that fitted whatever he was trying to go for on this song. Whatever it is, it didn't work. Sadly enough, I also don't really care for Hey Look Ma, I Made It. This one just feels like the horns on the chorus just try to have this galloping melody to them almost, and it kind of swallows the song alive. And also we have Dancing's Not a Crime, which I already alluded to is trying to be kind of an anthem earlier, but I just feel like on this one, it's honestly targeted at maybe like a movie soundtrack demographic, like maybe something like Can't Stop the Feeling by JT, and that one just always annoyed me because of its peppiness and its ability to really just try to be used anywhere, and it was used in the Trolls soundtrack. Well, Dancing's Not a Crime to me sounds like something that would be used in a montage of a movie targeted at middle-aged moms, and I really don't think that's a compliment. How about some positives on this record though? I mean, I think it's high time that we highlight some of those because there are songs that are just fine here, not ones that I would necessarily consider anywhere near Panic's best work, but we'll start with High Hopes. This is one that does have kind of a high energy to it. It's pushing that anthem-styled melody once again, and it is catchy for what it is. I won't say that it's a cheap thrill. In fact, I find it to be pretty fun. It has a snazzy production style to it and a sense of showmanship that I really appreciate from Brendon Urie. I think musically it does fall a bit short, especially with some of the horn arrangements on this track, but honestly, it is forgivable because it is one of the better tracks here, and surrounded by a bunch of songs that are really lukewarm at best, often just kind of freezing cold and me just wanting to turn my shoulder away, I'm easily brought back and lured back in with a song such as High Hopes. I already highlighted Say Amen Saturday Night as a fun song when I did my track review on it. I think it's something that you could easily have a good time getting drunk to, going out. It's innocuous enough, and it's not a track that I really harbor any sense of hatred towards. In fact, I do think it's one of the best songs here, and Brendon really sells himself as a solid and strong vocalist on this track. He also uses that charisma that he built on Saturday Night on the track The Overpass, where I feel like he puts those Frank Sinatra inspirations to good use. It has a very jazzy appeal in its opening section that makes you maybe think that it's going to be like a big band track. It just opens on the horns and the shrill blast of that, but it moves into it and it's more guitar driven, and I can really appreciate that on an album that really doesn't have much in the form of electric guitars, or else they're buried so low in the mix that you're really not going to hear them. This track actually has a nice guitar presence and even a bass presence that I really respect. I think that Brendon played the majority of the instruments, at least like the bass, the drums, the guitars, and everything like that himself. So on this tune, The Overpass, it's not only catchy and fun musically and has a driving chorus and spirit to it, I also really do love the musicality of it, and there's some actual detail in the work. And on this album, Pray for the Wicked in general, I just feel like there's such a lack of really anything that pushes any borders, and it just feels so stale and sterile, I suppose, in the guitar department. They use the acoustic guitars that are safe for pop music, and it's become such a trend, so overdone and overblown at this point to just continuously use the acoustic guitars, loop them to a beat or something like that, and Pray for the Wicked definitely falls into that in places, but something like The Overpass has to be praised for actually doing something and mixing it up differently. Thank God we got a well done change of pace there, because we move back into mediocre territory with Dying in LA and One of the Drunks especially. Now, Dying in LA, I know a lot of people are going to be like, but John, that's the anthem. That's the one that he poured his soul into and wrote a song about everybody who's trapped in LA and they were not able to achieve their dreams, and they came out there, the dreams were eventually crushed, and they just turned into a partier or a drug user or whatever. It's fine. I mean, I don't hate this song, but it's a pretty dime a dozen ballad. It really doesn't do all that much for me. There's a few moments that I find to be pretty engaging, but there's also some kind of silly ones when you're dying in LA. The way that he really overdoes it with that vocal flair. It just doesn't fit the song, and it just feels like he's trying to flex a vocal that he didn't really use that much on this record. He could have definitely unleashed in other places, but I don't know if Dying in LA's chorus was the best place to do that. Now, that other song I mentioned, One of the Drunks, it actually starts off with a little bit of promise. I was holding my breath thinking, this is starting fine. I mean, sure, it's got that chopped up vocal sample that's really stuttered all throughout, kind of used as the rhythm and the beat for the song. It's been done to death in modern music, but who really cares? It sounds pretty good here, and I think that Brendan opened up in an interesting enough way. But where it really starts to lose its focus is once that hook rolls around, because I just find it to be abysmal. Both lyrically and musically, it fails in a big way to sound like anything other than a drunk karaoke performance. I mean, the backing vocals will make you feel seasick. They're all over the place and they just don't fit. I mean, it pretty much undermines anything positive that was going on in the song. Honestly, on Pray for the Wicked, even a song such as Fuck a Silver Lining wears out that welcome pretty rapidly. It's something that quickly loses its sense of wonder and charm, leaving you kind of feeling like, well, this certainly isn't as interesting as it should be. Why don't I just go listen to some old Panic at the Disco? And I wouldn't blame you for saying that. Lately, I feel like every album by Panic at the Disco feels a little bit less lyrical, something that feels less intelligent and also more driven by commercial sounds. And those motivations are definitely saddening to me, but at the same time, I guess I get it. The fans are going to continue to eat it up no matter what it is. It's Brendan Urie, it's Panic at the Disco, so it is what it is. But for anybody looking for a little bit more depth, you're not really going to find it on a record like Pray for the Wicked. There might be a couple of redeemable moments for you, but overall, this was a big letdown, and it's really just sad to see a band like this that I truly do love overall, love the majority of their records, all the way up through pretty much Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die. I feel like it's gone downhill since then. And this new album, Pray for the Wicked, I cannot rate higher than a 2 out of 5. What do you guys think, though? This is, of course, just my opinion. Let me know about yours tastefully, respectfully in the comment section down below. Please drop a like on the video while you're here and subscribe to the channel. I don't just do album reviews. I also have top 10s, ranked episodes where I rank discographies, and I will do an episode for Panic at the Disco, every album ranked. Thanks again for tuning into the video, and props to you if you are a Panic fan and you're able to let me live and accept my opinion. If you want to see another Panic video, then tap right here. If you want to see another recent review I did, then tap right over here. All of my social media accounts can be found linked in the description, and other than that, I'll see you soon for more right here on ARTV.